2024, an RTI application revealed that Municipal Corporation of Delhi had spent nearly 100 crore rupees on dengue control operations. Yet mosquito-borne disease continued to rise. In 2019, another RTI exposed that Prime Minister's office and other VVIPs owed Air India over 598 crore rupees in unpaid bills for flights and aircraft maintenance, some dating back to 2008. Last year, an RTI filed by a citizen in Maharashtra uncovered that a village development project worth 50 lakh existed only on paper. The road was never built, but the money was spent.
This happens every day across India. Citizens using a tool that costs 10 rupees to ask questions the government must answer. But here is what most people don't know. This tool, this Right to Information Act, wasn't supposed to exist for the first 58 years after independence. India ran to a principle inherited from the British. Government business is secret business. Let's go back to 1843. The British East India Company, a consolidating power after conquering most of India, issued a notification government officials are prohibited from making official documents public. No explanation, no transparency, just orders. In 1857, the Home Department passed another resolution. Any official who wanted to write for a newspaper had to get permission from his office first. Control information, control dissent. Then in 1885, another resolution. Government officials must maintain secrecy on all matters that come to them during discharge of public duties, just like lawyers and bankers maintain client confidentiality. On June 9, 1888, the Official Secrets Bill was introduced in the British Parliament. By 1889, it became law and was immediately made applicable to India. But there was a problem. It did not quite fit Indian conditions. So in 1889, the Viceroy's Executive Council passed a separate Indian Official Secrets Act. This law had teeth.
In 1896, two men were arrested on charges of espionage. They were released not because they were innocent, but because authorities could not prove their case. The British didn't like that, so in 1904 they amended the Indian Official Secrets Act and did something crucial. They shifted the burden of proof to the accused. You don't have to prove someone is guilty of leaking secrets, they have to prove they are innocent. It is guilty until proven innocent. Then came 1947, independence. The British left, Indians took over, and what did independent India do with this colonial law designed to suppress information? We kept it. Not just kept it, we made it stronger. In 1951, the first amendment. In 1967, another amendment that increased the scope of punishment. The Law Commission reviewed it in 1971 and recommended no changes, though they add one comment. Just because a document is marked secret or classified should not automatically make it illegal to share, but that comment changed nothing in practice. In 1975, Justice K.K. Mathew of the Supreme Court during the State of Uttar Pradesh versus Raj Narayan case made a remarkable observation. He said, in a government of responsibility like ours, where all the agents of the public must be responsible for their conduct, there can be but few secrets. The people of this country have a right to know every public act, everything that is done in a public way by their public functionaries. Beautiful words, but they remain just that, words. The Official Secrets Act stayed on the books, the government files stayed locked, and this created the perfect breeding ground for what would happen next. Rajasthan, late 1980s. Picture this. You are a daily wage worker building a road under a government employment scheme. You work in the scorching heat for weeks. At the end, you are supposed to get minimum wage, let's say 30 rupees a day. But you get 15 or 10 or sometimes nothing at all. When you ask where the money went, the village development officer says it has been paid. The record shows it has been paid. On paper, everything is fine. But you didn't get paid, so where did the money go? The officer wrote down fake names in the muster roll. Ram Kumar, 10 days work, 300 rupees. But there is no Ram Kumar. Or he inflated the number of workers. 100 people worked on this road. Only actually 50 worked. The remaining wage is pocketed. Material for construction. We bought 100 bags of cement. They bought 40, used 20, and the money for 60 bags disappeared. This was happening everywhere, in every village, in hundreds of government schemes. Three people decided to do something about it. Aruna Roy, a former IAS officer who had left the civil service in 1974. Nikhil De, a social activist. And Shankar Singh, a local farmer and activist. In the 1980s, they founded the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan or MKSS. the Organization for the Empowerment of Workers and the Peasants. It officially registered in 1990. Their initial work was simple: organize workers, raise awareness about rights, fight for fair wages, but they kept hitting the same wall. Workers would say, "We didn't get paid." Official would say, "Yes, you did. It's in our record." How do you fight that? You can't prove corruption without seeing the record. And the records were secret, protected by official secret act that we inherited from our colonial masters and decided to keep. So MKSS did something radical. They said, "Show us the records, the muster rolls, the attendance sheet that show who worked how many days, the bills and the vouchers that show what materials were purchased and from whom, the payment registers. Just let us see what you wrote down. Not even question if it is true yet. Just let us see what you claim happened." The response: no, these are government documents. They are confidential. You have no right to see them. The district collector initially seemed sympathetic. In fact, he ordered that copies should be provided to MKSS. But when MKSS went to the village development officer to collect those copies, the officer refused. He and other officials went on strike. Their demand: they would only submit to an audit by the government, not by ordinary citizens. They would not share documents with non-officials. This refusal spread the agitation across Rajasthan, but MKSS had to temporarily stop because panchayat elections were coming, and they did not want this to become a political football. But during this pause, they managed something crucial. They gathered enough evidence to build a prima facie case. They presented it to the collector, who assured them an inquiry would happen. Nothing happened. The pressure was building. In 1993, the Consumer Education and Research Council prepared the first draft of Right to Information law. It went nowhere, so MKSS changed tactics. If the government would not give them documents, they would create a public spectacle that could not be ignored. December 2, 1994, Kot Kirana village, Pali district, Rajasthan. MKSS organized something called a Jan Sunwai, a public hearing. They had somehow managed to get copies of some government documents. Nobody is quite sure how they got them. Maybe a sympathetic official, maybe a leak, maybe they just persisted until someone gave in. In front of hundreds of villagers under the open sky, MKSS activists read out the government records line by line. Ramesh Kumar, 15 days work, 450 rupees paid. Villagers look around. Where is the Ramesh Kumar? He does not exist. Cement purchased 200 bags, amount 20, but the road only has enough cement for 80 bags. Where are the other 120 bags? Contractor Suresh Enterprises, payment 2 lakh rupees. MKSS held more hearings. December 7, 1994, in Bhimtown, Rajasthan district. This one investigated the Jawahar Rozgar Yojana, Apna Gaon Apna Kaam, 30 Jila 30 Kaam, and Indira Awas Yojana. Numerous cases of corruption were revealed. December 17, 1994, in Vijaypura, Rajasthan. January 7, 1995, in Javaja, Ajmer district. Each hearing exposed more corruption, and something started happening that the government could not ignore. Officials were being prosecuted, criminal cases were being filed based on what was revealed in these public hearings. On April 2, 1995, Chief Minister Bhairav Singh Shekhawat stood up in the Rajasthan Legislative Assembly and made an announcement: the public would be granted the right to information regarding all matters of Panchayati Raj institution. The activists celebrated. They had won, except nothing happened. April passed, May passed, June, July, August. 1 year went by. No administrative order was issued. The announcement was just words. The right existed in the Chief Minister's speech, but nowhere else. Files remained locked. The MKSS realized they had been played, so they launched a dharna, a sit-in in protest, in Vivar, a small town in Rajasthan. This was early 1996, an election year. The government, feeling the pressure, offered a compromise. A notification was issued. Citizens can inspect documents for a fee. Come to the office, look at the files, but you cannot take copies. The MKSS rejected this immediately. They called it a diversionary tactic. Think about it. You can look at a document, but you can't take a copy. So what you can do with that? You can't file a police case without a certified copy. You can't present it as evidence. You can't even remember all the details. Inspection without copies is useless, so the dharna continued. And then something remarkable happened. What started as a movement of daily wage workers became something bigger. Rich shopkeepers from Vivar started donating money and supplies to the protest. Right-wing organizations showed up to support. Communist trade unions arrived. Student groups came. Over 500 people were gathering daily. On May 2, 1996, right after elections were completed, the dharna spread to Jaipur, the state capital. Over 70 people's organizations supported it. And now national media was paying attention. The Hindu, Indian Express, Times of India, everyone was covering this story. Suddenly the question why can't see government document wasn't just being asked in Rajasthan. It was being asked in Delhi, in Mumbai, in Kolkata, across India. On May 14, 1996, an official press note was issued in Jaipur, and it is worth reading part of it because it is almost funny. The Rajasthan government stated, and this is their exact position, that they were taking this decision not because of pressure from people's organization but because of the government's own commitment to transparency and controlling corruption. Sure, totally. Not because of the year-long dharna and national media attention. The government announced it would establish a committee that would within 2 months figure out the logistics of providing photocopies of documents related to local development works. MKSS called off the dharna. They had a promise 2 months a committee would solve this. 2 months passed, nothing. 6 months, nothing. A year, nothing. The committee either never met or never produced recommendations. May 1997, MKSS started another dharna. Same location, same demand, and once again the same coalition showed up. Workers, shopkeepers, activists, unions, students. The support was even broader now. The people were bringing food, water, supplies, some were taking time off work to sit in protest. This wasn't just a fringe movement anymore. The dharna went on for 52 days. That is nearly 2 months of people sitting in the heat, sleeping under tents, refusing to leave until they got what had been promised 2 years ago. The government kept giving verbal assurance, soon, very soon, but nothing concrete. Finally, at the end of 52 days, the Deputy Chief Minister made an announcement, and this announcement is genuinely bizarre. He said 6 months ago the state government already notified the right to receive photocopies of documents related to panchayat or village local government institutions. Wait, what? 6 months ago? So for the entire duration of this 52-day dharna, while people were sitting in the sun demanding this right, the government had already granted it 6 months earlier. So why was this kept secret? Why didn't anyone mention this during the protest? How can an order about transparency be kept secret for 6 months? To this day, nobody knows why it remains a mystery. But by now the movement had spread beyond Rajasthan. In 1997, Tamil Nadu became the first state to pass a comprehensive state-level Right to Information Act. Other states started drafting their own versions. Goa, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka. The idea was becoming mainstream. In 1996, recognizing that this needed to be a national law, not just a patchwork of state laws, activists formed the National Campaign for People's Right to Information (NCPRI). Aruna Roy was central to this, along with activists from across India. Their goal was to pressure the central government to pass a national RTI law. They prepared a draft bill in 1996. In 1997, the government of India, responding to this pressure, formed a working group under the consumer activist H.D. Sori to prepare a Freedom of Information bill. Notice the name, Freedom of Information, not Right to Information. Subtle difference but important. Freedom suggests something the government graciously allows. Right suggests something citizens inherently possesses. In 2002, Parliament passed the Freedom of Information Act. Activists were disappointed the law was weak, too many exemptions, no penalties for non-compliance, no enforcement mechanism. It was transparency in name only. The law existed but was never properly implemented. It died a quiet death. Then came 2004. The general election brought a new government, the United Progressive Alliance led by the Indian National Congress with support from the left parties and regional allies. Coalition government, which meant compromises, which meant the common minimum program, a document where all alliance partners agreed on basic policy. The worried in that document was a commitment. The UPA government will enact a more effective right to information law. Not consider or explore, will enact. This was a promise in writing in the governing document of the coalition. After coming to the power, the UPA government did something unusual. They established the National Advisory Council or NAC, chaired by Sonia Gandhi, who was the Congress president but not in government. The NAC's job was to advise the government on policy, but here is the crucial part. They filled it with civil society members, people who had been activists, not bureaucrats or politicians. Aruna Roy from MKSS got a seat at the table. Jane Raje, the economist, Harsh Mandar, people who had spent years, sometimes decades, fighting for transparency and accountability were suddenly sitting in rooms with ministers and bureaucrats drafting policy. The NEC made RTI a priority. They took the activist demand, the lesson from state level RTI laws, the failure of the 2002 Act, and drafted a new will. This wasn't just government official writing what they thought transparency should look like. This was activists who had run dharnas for 52 days writing what they knew was needed. But getting it through parliament wasn't easy. There were debates, serious debates. Some politicians were genuinely worried about national security. If everything is public, what about defense information? Intelligence operation? What about privacy? Do citizens' personal details held by government become public? Some politicians were worried about their own exposure. This law could be used against them. Bureaucrats had their own concerns. The Indian bureaucracy isn't small, we are talking about millions of government employees. If every citizen can ask questions and you have to respond within 30 days and there are penalties for non-compliance, the workload would be enormous. The compromises were made. Intelligence agencies, IB, RAW were exempted. Not completely but significantly. National security exemptions were added. You cannot RTI information that might harm security. Cabinet discussions got protection. Ministers' internal deliberation remained secret. Some court proceedings were exempted. Some activists were not happy with these compromises. They wanted fewer exemptions. But the core of the law remained strong. On May 15, 2005, Parliament passed the Right to Information Act 2005. The vote was not close, it had broad support. The opposition supported it, government supported it. After years of dharna, after activists being beaten, after 52-day protest, after state-level battles, after workers demanding their wages, it became law. On October 12, 2005, the Right to Information Act came into force across India. Here is what it said. Any citizen, not just activist or journalist, but anyone can request information from any public authority. The authority must respond within 30 days if information concerns someone's life or liberty 48 hours. If an authority does not respond, the designated public information officer can be fined up to 25,000 rupees deducted from their salary. Information commissions were established at central and state levels to handle appeals and enforce compliance. Public authority was defined broadly. Government, ministry, departments, parliament, legislature, courts, police, anyone created by the constitution or by law. Anyone substantially financed by the government. NGOs substantially financed by the government. It was comprehensive.